Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at the Song of Songs, chapter 2. Start in chapter 2, verse 1. I am the Rose of Sharon. Here, the bride is speaking. She describes herself as the Rose of Sharon. The Sharon is that area right along the coast of northwestern Canaan. That whole area is rather flat. There's no natural harbors, and south of where the mountains actually jut right out into the sea, south of that is known as the Sharon. She's describing herself as the Rose of Sharon. So rose are these little red flowers. They grow right along the coast. The salt water spraying in the air doesn't bother them. Notice the rose. She's also describing herself as the lily. And now he will speak in response. Like a lily among the thorns, so is my darling among the maidens. So she didn't mention thorns, he does. But picking up that flower picture, she speaks now like an apple tree among the trees of the forest. So is my beloved among the young men. He's straight, he's strong, and the apple part, he's fruitful, he tastes good, and so on. In his shade I took great delight and sat down, and his fruit was sweet to my taste. This is getting a little graphic, sort of describing him like the tree. He's got fruit, and boy, he smells good, he tastes good, sweet to his taste. So we speak of his fruit. Verse 4, he has brought me to his banquet hall, al Bet ha Yain. And literally, it brought me to the house. That's the best part. To the house of wine, which is a banquet hall. That's the idea. They just called it that. Uh, and and his banner over me is love. And so, picturing the place of celebration, the banner. We're starting to get close. We're not there yet, but it's a picture of what will eventually be the wedding. Now, that's not going to come until the next chapter. Verse 5, sustain me with raisin cakes, refresh me with apples. We had the apple tree, and now we've got the apples because I am lovesick. Now, I'm not sure what it means in English to be lovesick, let alone in Hebrew. When she says I'm lovesick, the NIV rendered it, I am faint with love. And I think that's probably the idea here. She is so in love, she can hardly stand it, but no, she's not sick to her stomach. It's not that sort of thing. Verse 6, she is speaking, let his left hand be under my head and his right hand embrace me. Now you can picture that. You're supposed to picture it. And that refrain is going to be repeated when we get to chapter 8 and verse 3. There will be some refrains that are repeated more, but you're going to see a pattern here with some things that were said in the last chapter and some things that are said here, which are repeated when we get to chapter 8, and they will be repeated in a very specific order. So here's the order. We started off way back in chapter 1 last time, verse 1 through 4. The king has brought me into his chambers, and then we talked about the brothers made her caretaker of the vineyard. Remember, she was a little bit miffed at her brothers. Now in chapter 2 and verse 3, he's like an apple tree, and the left hand under her head, his right hand embraces her. Where we haven't gotten to yet, chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, where she's going to wake up and seek him in the night and not find him, and she'll be looking throughout the city, and she runs into the watchman. And when we get to the middle of chapter 3, we're going to see the wedding, where Solomon arrives. He comes up, and he's got the procession, and the wedding takes place. And in chapters 4, all the way to 5:1, he's going to refer to her as his bride. Well, that means that she's married, okay? So don't miss that part. Next, when we get to latter part of chapter 5, again, there's going to be she seeks him in the night, doesn't find him. She goes about the city. There's watchmen again. This time they're a little rougher, or it's more descriptive, I should say. Eventually, we're going to get to chapter 8, verse 3, and again, and this is why I mentioned it here. The left hand under her head, his right hand embraces her. We will see that the apple tree is mentioned, my love under an apple tree. We will see a reference to the brothers again, but no, she's no longer partaker of the vineyard or caretaker of the vineyard. Now she's the owner of the vineyard because she's married to the king. and it will end with Solomon and his bride going off on their honeymoon. So I want you to see the bigger picture. We didn't cover that already because I wanted you to see a little bit of it first, and then I can show you the bigger picture. We'll see this again. We'll see this again. This is going to be sort of our key to seeing the entire Song of Solomon. But we're not done yet. Notice chapter 2, verse 7. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem. Now, this is part of that same refrain that we're going to see when we get to chapter 8, verse 4. I hold you right hand, left hand. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the hinds of the field. And he's the one doing the speaking here. When he says, I adjure you, that's hishbati. That's actually the language of well, actually, this is real serious. Almost, I think, like the language of a covenant. Although I'm not sure that he's making a covenant, but this is important. This isn't just like, hey, by the way, I'm going to give you a little suggestion. This is not a suggestion. This is a divine command. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the hinds of the field, that you do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. He's watching out for her. And so this is the Hifil perfect, first common singular of Shavah, to swear. Like I said, this is the language of a covenant, of an oath. This is serious stuff. And so he is sort of placing them under an oath. You don't wake her up. Now hear this. Now we're going to see that same construction in chapter 3 and verse 5 about don't wake her. So it will be seen in chapter 8, verse 4, but a few other places, leading just before the wedding, just after the wedding, and on the honeymoon, chapter 5 and verse 8. And we already said chapter 8, verse 4. So here she is. She's asleep. That you do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. And now she speaks. Is this a dream sequence or did she finally wake up? Chapter 2, verse 8. Listen, my beloved. And actually, the Hebrew kol daudi, kol is they translate it here listen, but it's actually speaking of the voice or the sound. And maybe she's hearing the sound of my beloved, my daudi. Remember the word beloved, David, same term here. The name David means a beloved one. Listen, my beloved, and so it's a call to hear. And then behold, so listen, look, behold, he's coming, climbing on the mountains, leaping on the hills. He's, there's a lot of energy here. Verse 9, my beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. So behold, he's standing behind our wall. He's looking through the windows. We're going to see that stag and that gazelle part again. He's looking through the windows. He's peering through the lattice. Maybe it's his voice telling him not to wake her up. Maybe she has woken up here. Not sure exactly how we're to take the imagery. My beloved, and here she's still speaking, but now she's going to quote him. My beloved responded and said to me, that's her speaking, and here's what she says that he said. Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come along, for behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. Remember that in Israel, the rainy season is into winter. So that he says it, the winter is past, and then he says it a different way. The rain is over and gone because the rain is over and gone when the winter is gone. So the rain is over and gone. The flowers have already appeared in the land. The time has arrived for pruning the vines. In other words, spring is in the air. The winter is gone. And this is the time for new life. This is the time where, of course, all throughout the winter, things are starting to grow. But now that it's no longer cold, everything gets green. The time has arrived for the pruning of the vines. The voice of the turtle dove has been heard in the land. Spring is in the air. It's the time of love. By the way, that's also time for Passover. Remember, our Jewish friends, they will read the Song of Songs at the time of Passover. When the winter is gone, the rain is over, the winter's past, the rain is gone, the flowers are appearing. That's when they read this book. So, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come along. We're going to see that again. The fig tree has ripened its figs. The vines in blossom have given forth their fragrance. And then he says again, "Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come along." So that's the refrain here. When you speak of fig trees and vines, I can't help but remember how that it was said in the days of Solomon that things were so prosperous that every man was under his vine and under his fig tree. And here they are both mentioned. Verse 14, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock." Now, he has already described her like a dove, uh, but in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the steep pathway, let me see your form. He hasn't really seen her form. Remember the veil? So there hasn't really been that clear description. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet, your form is lovely. And notice she's in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the steep pathway. But there's a reference first to the form, and then the voice, and then the voice, and then the form. That's a chiastic sort of arrangement, short little one there. We go on to verse 15. Catch the foxes. Now they're both speaking because it's for us. Catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyard. Now, when you hear foxes, the shu'alim, um, in our culture, we look at, of course, if you're a farmer and you think foxes, they're a pest. They can get into the chicken house. They can sort of cause a disturbance. If you're a city dweller, you think, oh, isn't that nice? That's a fox. Every once in a while, actually, I've seen some foxes, not recently, but in my neighborhood, every once in a while, someone will get out from the wild out west, and they'll get into like in town, and you'll see one. It doesn't happen very often, and we look at it and we say, "Oh, isn't that cute?" Farmers don't. So these are foxes. The same term is also used for jackals. But the idea is this is a pest. This is not a good thing. This is a catch the foxes, the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards while our vineyards are in blossom. Now, I don't think we're supposed to be taking this literally. So when we talked about the vineyards, remember how she had said, the brothers made me partake of they made me take care of the vineyard, but I haven't taken care of my own vineyard. And that wasn't talking about her own plot of land or her own grapes, but rather it was talking about her own body. And I think the same thing might be in view here. Remember, they made me cartaker of the vineyard, but I haven't taken care of my own vineyard. I think what's happening here is that the foxes are those things that might sort of ruin or take attention away from the two of them. They've come together. The wedding is approaching. And we're going to see that next. There's anticipation, and let's get rid of all distractions. Now you can take that whichever way you want, but they only have eyes really for each other. Verse 16, my beloved, and she's speaking here, my beloved is mine, and I am his. Notice the mutual possession here. It's not just that she belongs to him. And remember, in the ancient world, that was often the case. The wife became a possession of the husband. But here it's described, and I'm not saying that culture wasn't still here, but here it's described as mutual possession. My beloved is mine, and I am his. By the way, I'm not trying to spiritualize this too much, but we do the same thing with God, where God says, you are my people, I'm making you mine. And we are allowed to say, and even encouraged to say, and you are my God. There's a mutual possession here. Same thing here. He pastures his flock among the lilies, and notice again that word flock is italicized. He pastures, and that's what you do. There's a flock there assumed. He pastures among the lilies. Remember, she was described as one of the lilies until the cool of the day when the shadows flee away. And so there, we saw the mutual possession. Turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle. I noted that before, but here we have it again. Or a young stag on the mountains of Bether. Now, we close on that note. You say, what are the mountains of Bether? I don't know. I've never heard any specific mountains that are called that. The term Bether seems to refer to a division, maybe a valley or something like that. Um, and so the picture perhaps is right now we're not together, but we want to be, and we're looking forward to the day right around the corner, the day of the wedding, when we'll no longer be divided, but we will be eternally together.